Nadia is a television news anchor, keynote speaker, author, trainer, and communications consultant.
19 number one best-selling
have been nominated and won so many awards throughout your careers.
She has a wealth of experience interviewing and consulting with well-renowned figures, celebrities, and corporations. Nadia speaks on how to get people to like you, trust you, and want to do business with you.
Over the last few weeks, the entire world has been monitoring the treatment of your grandfather, Nelson Mandela. And my job was to introduce it and provide.
With topics like leveraging the power of your personal presence, networking for success, and lighting the fire. Nadia Bilchik.
Hello, I am delighted to be joined this morning by a very well-renowned figure, and he is a transformation coach, Michael Raal. Michael, thank you for being with us on this Saturday.
You're so welcome. It's lovely to be with you, Nadia.
So Michael and I were scheduled to have a chat this morning, just a chat. And we're in a mastermind group together, so we thought we'd have a conversation. And because Michael is such a mine of wisdom and experience, Michael, I thought you were too good to have alone, and I wanted to share your wisdom this morning with a wider audience than just me. So thanks for being so spontaneous.
You're welcome. It was quite fun.
So, Michael, everybody wants to know, how do we really change mindset and habits? It's so hard to do because they're so embedded. So from your experience, what is your approach to helping the people you work with and help to truly shift?
So if I think of what we're really talking about, I want to change sort of the reference or the context, Nadia. The context what we're talking about for me is actually about healing. This is all about healing, changing mindset and habits. If we're trying to improve our lives and become a better human being, that's one thing. And that would mean we need to try and work with our mind and see how we can become the master of the mind and not the slave to the mind, for example. Or if we have self-defeating habits, we want to change those habits so we can be healthier or maybe have better relationships. All of those aspects are aspects of healing. So this conversation that we're having really is one of healing, whether you're talking about a business context, or you're talking about interpersonal relationships, or you're talking about countries. There is a healing crisis in the world. That is the absolute key that we have at the moment, is a healing crisis. And we don't know we're in a healing crisis. So what does it mean to heal? I think that's kind of the question that comes up. What does really healing actually mean? Well, there's kind of two ways you can look at healing. The one way of looking at healing, to heal, is to be free of fear. Okay.
I'm trying to get as many of your Michaelisms in the banners as possible. So if you hear me typing, that's what it is. Just for anybody who's joined us, I'm speaking to transformation coach, and who has had a wealth of experience in the corporate world and comes to this with a mind of experience. And he says, we want to be a master of the mind, not slave to it. And to heal is to be free of fear. Yeah. That's beautiful. So if I stop you, it's because I want to share it, and because one thing we say in the world,
great, Nadia. It makes
professional
it much more spontaneous.
We need to repeat.
To heal is to be free of fear. Or another way of looking at healing is to be integrated, to become whole. And what does that really mean? Well, there's four main dimensions of a human being. There's our memories, there is our mental body, our minds, there is our emotional bodies, and there's our physical bodies. And all of those are the aspects of a human being that require healing. So if you look at those four different bodies, so for example, where does fear come from? Well, all fear is felt in the body, but it's created in the mind. Anxiety is a mental thought that triggers a physiological reaction that we feel very deeply in our emotional bodies, and then can move straightly into our physical body, maybe feel in our stomach or in our minds or in our hearts or wherever we feel it. So this whole aspect of changing your minds and changing your things, it's really about the healing that we require. And the first recognition is that we actually require healing. Now, how do we transform? I think that's the question that most people want to know. And what does transformation actually mean? The words actually mean a cross form, transformation, a cross form. It's not just that we make ourselves slightly better human beings or slightly improve ourselves. That we actually have a shift of identity, a shift of experience, a shift of state of being That is really what we refer to when we're talking about something transformation. Otherwise, we're just trying to, just trying to improve. Now, humanity is going through a radical transformation at the moment because radical constant change creates transformation. Constant transformation creates evolution.
Mm-hmm.
That is the steps, and mankind is in an evolutionary process. We might think of ourselves as a discontinuous entity with one just single human being having one specific experience. But that's not really the continuum of what it means to be a human. Well, actually, sorry, that actually is what it means to be a human, but it's not what we talk about when we talk about the soul or the journey of what we're really doing. So in this whole journey that humankind is going through now, we're in a healing crisis, and we're looking for ways to heal. What stops us from healing, number one thing that stops us from healing, is the crisis of being busy.
So is that something, can we just pause for a moment and say, I know you work with a lot of individuals and companies to get to a point of being more productive, and you do this through understanding of self. So for those people who are joining us to understand that Michael is looking at other ways of creating new habits and mindsets, and you're saying the crisis of being busy, and I think every single person who's listening to this right now can relate to that. So go into more detail, please.
Yeah, you're welcome. So it's the crisis we have, and the reason why we're so busy is because we think we need to do certain things to meet our needs, and which is practically correct. We need to make money in order to live, and those types of things. But when we spend 90% of our awareness and our focus on those specific goals, that is the experience that we create. Simply put, wherever your focus of awareness is, that is where your consciousness is at. So if we are not focusing 1/10 of the day on an inner dimension of being or an inner aspect of ourselves, we have no awareness of that dimension completely. And therefore, in actual fact, that dimension doesn't exist. Now, why do I bring up this dimension of this inner awareness? Well, all results, the absolute genius that we are, exists in that dimension. It's where our genius actually exists. If you take an Einstein, you take it to a great musical genius, or a Magnus Carlsen who's a chess player, all of those geniuses are tapping into a different dimension, which I would call the inner dimension, the higher dimension. It's just our natural birthright. It's really our true identity. Every spiritual teacher will tell you that. But that is the aspect of genius. So,
and then, okay, please get to that. And then after this, if you can get to how you use the enneagram, if we can link it, because I did how you use that to facilitate some of these changes. So please carry on, because this is fascinating.
So I came across the enneagram many years ago, and in my intuition just shouted at me, this is something I really need to look at. And why I like the enneagram so much is it's not a personality test. It's not a way of reinforcing the personality. So if you go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, they're going to try and make you a more healthy human being. They're going to try and make you have better self-esteem. If you go to a spiritual teacher, they're going to say, well, you're not a human being. You actually are something much deeper than that, and therefore you need to transcend that. Well, if you take both paradigms of the psychologist, which will be the Western tradition, you take the Eastern tradition of your true identity and meditation, moving past into a different shift of that. You combine the two, you get the enneagram. The enneagram takes both of those aspects of being and says, what is our strategy that blocks our true awareness of our genius? What is the strategy we have created? And it even goes further than that, and it says, what strategy have we created that actually has a self-fulfilling prophecy that gives us the exact experience that we don't want? That's just mind-blowing. If you think of that, my whole life, I've tried every single strategy. I've done this, and I've tried to find happiness or bliss or awareness. I've tried to find wealth, success, productivity, great things, the most amazing relationships, the greatest sex, the greatest, all these different dimensions of being that we try, that we think of for us. There is inherently a strategy we have chosen, which is bringing us the exact opposite result of what we're looking for.
So can you break it down to something very practical? So,
okay. Thank you. Thank you for grounding me, Nadia. I tend to go very...
because and the enneagram is an assessment you can take, and it comes up on a chart, and it's very well known, and I'm sure that so many people joining us have heard about it. So somebody comes to you in an organization because they are constantly combative. And you get told, Michael, please, can you coach this person because they're very high potential, they're a great subject matter expert, but they don't play well with others. How would you use the Enneagram to help them come to terms with what is causing them this? And then how do you help them?
Absolutely. So the first thing is, if you wanted to just clear the anger, you could find coping strategies of working with anger. You can go to anger coach, you can do those types of things. But anger is a behavior. It's a behavior that we feel and then we act it out. Okay. If we repress anger, it actually becomes sadness, interesting enough, and that's where we get grief from. Not many people actually make that connection, but it's a behavior.
Please say that again. Just say that again, because I think that is so profound. If we suppress
anger, we create sadness. It's where sadness actually comes from. Sadness is the repression of anger. And what is anger telling us? Every emotion that we have has a gift in it. Even anger, sadness, grief, despondency, they all have some sort of value to us that we can look at if we look from a metaphysical perspective. Anger tells us where we haven't created boundaries. It tells us where we're not fulfilling our own needs. It tells us where we've lost our passion. If we keep repressing that anger, it's actually going to, long term, we're going to start to feel an immense sense of grief, sadness, and then we're going to spiral down into depression and all those, sort of negative states of consciousness. So
many people can relate to that.
Yeah, what I'm referring to here now is anger as a behavior. So if you want to do transformation level behavior, you're not really getting to the core of where does the anger come from? What is the actual root cause of the anger? Now, most anger, people would say, well, what is anger? They would say, well, something's been done to me. It's unjust. I didn't deserve this, and I had no part in the playing of the role in the creation of this experience. That's what anger basically, that's the four main sides if you look at what anger actually is. But what's deeper behind that? Where is the actual anger coming from? What is the motivation that is giving rise to the experience of the trigger that is creating that anger? So we need to look at motivation. So the enneagram comes in, tying it back to the enneagram. Enneagram is not a behavioral tool that tells you you're an angry person, therefore you need some therapy. And, it says, well, where's that anger coming from? So what is the motivation for my actions to move away from anger? Now, people who have, let's say you have a problem with anger and you're very combative. Well, the reason why you have that behavior is there has to be a positive intention by being combative. No one just does something to see that they get a bad result. So they are combative because that's the way that strategy they've chosen to meet their needs. Well, what is their need? Where is that need actually coming from? What is the actual need or the lack that they feel they never received? And we could say this in a way, it could be a childhood wounding, it could be something you got from a parent, that type of thing. But what is the actual lack that they feel in their life? That is going to be a much deeper causation of where the trigger is.
So do you have an example of somebody you've worked with that through doing this work, I'm just curious how you've helped them understand their anger, work through it.
Okay. So healing has to work on all four quadrants now. So if you first give someone the wisdom and through the enneagram, they do a test, takes 35 minutes, they do the questionnaire, they get their report, 21 pages, they come to me and they say, okay, Michael, help me to transform this anger into something positive and etc. So the first thing is we'll then unpack what the understanding is, where it is. We'll bring them a lot of self-awareness, what's really going on here. We'll see how that picks out in the environment. I will then get them to a point where they can start to say, well, okay, the shift I need to make first is that I'm the creator of my experience. Therefore, that's the first thing is finding that responsibility for where it's actually coming from. But now we've done that, that is only just awareness. It's only the start of the journey. We have to move much deeper than that. We've got to start working from just the awareness of that into the emotional healing, which is most times when people on a transformational journey, they stop. They say, because no one likes to feel negative emotions. No one likes to feel anger, sadness, depression, etc. No one likes to feel them. But the nature of emotions, they're water. They need to flow. Water is an element that flows. So the next stage of this is once we have the awareness of this is then to start the emotional healing journey. Where does it actually come from? Now, whether you are the CEO, whether you are the president of America, everyone requires healing. And Joe Biden's actions and Donald Trump's actions and all the past presidents, their actions are all and reactions are all coming from the exact same journey. They're a human being just like us. They have the same concerns. Just the impact is much bigger. That's why I chose particularly to work in the business area or with politicians or with that area, because I really wanted to bring in the highest transformational aspect. So we need to work on the awareness. Then we work on the emotional healing side of it. And then with the emotional healing side, I don't know if you know this, but generally if people have a problem with the emotions, it's because of memories. And in the work that I've done, I can show you the mathematical model sometimes, because I love the math and science behind this. But the mathematical model basically tells you that memories are linked to emotions and the mind is linked to the physical body. That is the causational fact of the 4 different aspects of being of a human being. So if we have tremendous emotional traumas and we can't access our emotions, some people, you say to them, well, they feel like a robot. They just can't access their emotions. The reason why they have memories. So now our healing journey has to start at a very different level, Nadia. Now we've got to start working with clearing those memories. And what's really important about this journey is we need to create a sense of not putting people back into trauma that they feel like they're trauma, but to experience the emotion but not buy into it. Or re-experience the event but not buy into it. Otherwise, we're just re-imprinting people with negative experiences.
So that is interesting, right? Because that's almost like journey therapy or the work of Brandon Hayes, where you go back and reframe some of these memories.
Not reframe. To reframe a memory it could be a spiritual technique of trying to find the mental side of reframing of an actual event. I'm talking about true healing is actually that the memory no longer exists.
So you erase the memory, or you?
Of course. If you watch a violent movie before you go to bed, okay? Movie, you go watch a violent movie. You go to bed, you wake up at 2 a.m. What's playing in your mind?
Absolutely. So you're saying
playing.
Right.
And if you watch someone and you're really attracted to Richard Gere when you watch that movie, then 2 days later, you wake up in the morning, we're having coffee with a friend, and Richard, that memory or that image that we see inside ourselves pops in of Richard Gere, and you go, huh?
Right.
Richard Gere. This is so weird. Richard Gere was 2 days ago. But we still stuck with that memory. And where does the memory go? Well, it's actually stored. We have a body that stores every single memory. It's nuts. When you think of it, this is why taking responsibility for where we place our awareness is such a huge part of transformational journey. Because if we are watching, like if you watch a show, Marvelous Miss Maisel or any of these shows, ER, whatever they are, and you watch them for a long time, you actually start to physically have that experience of living that, and those memories are coming back.
That is so powerful. So, Michael, do you work with individuals, with groups? Help us understand. And by the way, what's so cool about this moment is Michael is in Plettenberg Bay in South Africa. So for those of you who haven't visited South Africa, I know you've heard about Cape Town. So Plet is about, a 2.5 hour drive from Cape Town?
It's a little bit further. It's actually 6 hours from Cape Town, although it seems less, but it's actually quite a long drive. 6 hours.
6 hours from Cape Town. That's how long I have not been to Plet. We call it Plet. One of the most beautiful places on the earth. But given our virtual worlds, if people want to reach out to you, if they're interested in you exploring the Enneagram with them, please tell us how people would reach you, because I personally am totally fascinated by the work you do, also because you do the Enneagram in combination with looking at people's horoscopes, not horoscopes as such. You look at it differently, but you definitely have a unique way of approaching coaching.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sure. So you asked a number of questions, but I do.
What's the way people can reach you?
Okay, they can reach me on www.freedomspeaksconsultancy.com. I'm actually based in America. I'm just traveling in South Africa at the moment, but I'm based in the States. Yeah, I'm based in Montana, and I'll be back there in about 2 weeks or so.
Montana, the place of Yellowstone.
I'm right outside Yellowstone. I live near Gardner, Montana, and we have just hundreds of miles of wilderness. It's the most beautiful
I don't want to digress, but of course, Yellowstone, the family needs lots of healing. And then right now in America, top of news is the Alex Murdoch case. He's accused of murdering his wife and his son. Talk about healing. Anyway, we could digress, but you use other methods of helping people understand their fear, and that is...
Yeah. So the other methods I use astrology as one of my methods.
Astrology is the word.
Astrology, but it's not sun sign astrology. It's the soul astrology. I want to know, what is the soul here for? What is the imprint that astrological influences give us as a human being? And we know astrology actually works. Think of the moon and how it changes, the murder rate goes up during the moon. So it's really just fascinating how it fits. But I want to know, my whole philosophy, Nadia, if you just have a look at it, is nothing in life has meaning unless it's in relation to the soul. Now,
I have to pause at this point because Cheryl Westerman has just said, "Great talk, Michael. She's enjoying listening to you, and she wants us to both go to Plett to visit you."
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Yes. It's a very healing place. If you need some healing,
a retreat with Michael, Cheryl, in the thing. So you're saying, go back to your point about the soul, because I think so many people who are watching us, listening to us now, or in the recording can relate to what you just said.
I try not to go into, because you're brilliant at doing this, Nadia, because I go very metaphysical very quickly. So just forgive me. I go into the much deeper concepts that I've found in the life. But what is real? Let's just think of this. What is actually real? Now, people have different definitions of real. 5 sensory, what I can touch is real, and that's kind of how they interpret reality. My definition of what's real is the only thing that's real is what's permanent. Something that's real has to be permanent. So what is permanent? Well, is our mind permanent? No, it's not permanent, because our thoughts change continually. Therefore, we can't be our minds. And at the point of our physical body dying, where the mind goes. What's permanent? Are our emotions permanent? No emotions. We're happy in the morning and then we're sad in the afternoon. So how does that work? So we're not the emotions. The physical body transitions, so we're not that either. So that when I was doing this type of work, I wanted to know what was the real nature of my reality, and why, particularly because I wanted to know where meaning came from. Where does meaning come from? Is something meaningful just because we give it the meaning that it actually has? Or is there a deeper level of meaning in regard to a certain purpose, something that is really real, transcendent, continuous, permanent? That aspect, if we look at it, whether you are the CEO of a corporation and various things or not, or just a person working as a blue-collar worker, it's all about the soul, the journey of the soul. That is truly meaningful, and that's where we create the meaning. And the meaning is specifically every experience we have is meaningful in the journey of the transformation of the soul. That is what we are as human beings are here for. That is what every country is doing. That is what every civilizations are doing. It's all in relation to the soul journey.
So, Michael, your advice and guidance to this beautiful group of people who are joining us right now. So, again, and I think you've explained this, but if you have one thought for us today, all of us who are dealing with so many of the emotions you speak about, and I, for one, can certainly relate to that anger being repressed, becoming sadness. I think that's very powerful. What is the step for all of us as we begin the Saturday and go into the week? What is something we can start with? And then again, as I say, if you want to reach out to Michael, he's on freedomspeaksconsultancy.com. One Raalism, one Michaelism, one bit of practical advice or guidance.
One wisdom. Well, I would say firstly for everyone, the key thing is to recognize that you need healing. I was a corporate guy. I was extremely successful. I was running a very good business. I built a $500 million rand business at that time. I was, in the middle of that, I decided to give all of it up to find out who I was and I realized I needed healing. Tremendous amounts of healing. No matter how successful I was, I realized that I need healing. As soon as you realize that you have that need for healing and you're not ashamed of it or embarrassed of it, and you realize that that is something that you want to pursue, that changes everything. Your life will change because the whole universe is conspiring us, is waiting for us for that moment where we reach up our arms and say, hey, I'm here. I'm willing to make this commitment to healing. Just help me. And you'll be amazing. Suddenly you'll meet a guy in the street who's an amazing healer and you'll work with that person and the next thing will unfold, or your cousin will come across and he'll tell you about this workshop he did and you'll go on that. Everything just opens up when we have that first realization we actually need healing. And how do you know if you need healing? Well, if you're running levels of anxiety, levels of fear, dysfunctional relationships, if you have addictions, which is really running away from the self, that's what addictions are, or every type of addiction you can think of, from coffee to drugs, it's running away from the self. All of those aspects are just aspects of me healing. Just say, I need healing, and reach out. Your prayers will be answered, and you will receive the magic of the moment.
That is so powerful and so much more to unpack. I hope we get to have this conversation again, because I have so many more questions for you. But please, if you'd like to reach out for Michael, have a conversation, that is his website below. And I have watched him in action, and he is truly a transformational coach. Michael Raal from Plettenberg Bay, but soon to be back in Montana. Thank you so much for a wonderful conversation.
You're welcome, Nadia. It's been absolutely